In regards to, you've had Ben Shapiro on when he was super young, when you were, you know what I'm talking about, when you had him on your Constitution, when you guys had that conversation. You had Alex Jones on when he came in with the whole, 1776.
Well, he had a petition to deport me, and it was quite funny actually, because he said that because of my opposition to or criticism of the Second Amendment, that I should be deported. And in fact, Obama was president, and it was done on the White House petitions page. And if it reached, I think it was a threshold of 25,000 signatures, the president had to give a verdict. And it went to like 120,000 people signed the thing to have me deported. And Obama, I was on air at the time, and the news came, you're not going to believe this, Obama's just saved you for the American people. I went, what do you mean? They said, you can stay. He said that you're covered by your First Amendment rights, which apply to anybody who's living in America, citizen or not. You're covered by your First Amendment right to criticize the Second Amendment. And he was absolutely right. I was. So, I don't want to relitigate my whole view about guns in America. It rapidly became clear to me that whilst I may have validity to my views, these were not views shared by many Americans, and they didn't want to hear a Brit lecturing them on how to lead their lives. I get it. But on that point, they both missed the fundamental point, which is I was entitled under my First Amendment rights to criticize the Second Amendment, and so I should be.
And your position hasn't changed about Second Amendment?
Well, no. I think my position has changed in this regard. I would say that I come from a country that used to be steeped in guns. Everybody had a gun 200 years ago in Britain. And now very few people have a gun. We had a horrific mass shooting like Sandy Hook at Dunblane in Scotland in the mid-90s. I was editor of the Daily Mirror at the time. It led to a very interesting campaign started by a Conservative Prime Minister, John Major, taken up by Tony Blair, a Labour Prime Minister. It was a cross-party agreement that we were going to stop most private ownership of guns to try and stop this happening, because the person who did it in Dunblane, Thomas Hamilton, had built up a big arsenal of private weapons. And it was successful. And now we've not had a mass shooting since. In Australia, they had a horrific one in Hobart in Tasmania. 35 people got murdered around the same year, actually. They did a buyback program, and I think 700,000 guns got handed in, and the government paid people for them. They've not had a mass shooting like that since Hobart. So, it's different culture. America.
Are you more open to it now?
Well, no. What I would say is this: America has 400 million guns in circulation. Neither Britain nor Australia had more than a tiny fraction.
But with all the knife crimes that's going on in London,
we have a problem with knife crime.
Okay, but why do you think you have a knife crime problem?
Too many knives in use on the streets. I mean, I would make the punishment for being caught with a knife on the street extremely punitive.
But we have a lot. We probably have more knives than you guys have. How come you don't have a lot of knives?
You have a gun violence problem. We have a knife crime problem.
What is the ratio of the knife to gun problem
in the UK?
Yeah,
we have hardly any gun violence at all.
No. What I'm saying is the number of knife crime problems in the UK compared to the gun crime problems that we have in the US.
Oh, well.
What's the ratio?
Oh, well, I think you have still between 80 and 90,000 people a year in America die from guns. That includes suicide, which is a large number of that, but it also includes homicides and accidents. The UK has a tiny, tiny fraction of gun, but also the knife victims would be a tiny fraction of that. So we're talking a very, very small percentage of your gun deaths a year.
If you were to be the prime minister, would you consider opening up and having folks in the UK have guns, or you have zero tolerance?
Well, I think you have to. I think it's interesting. There are lots of aspects of that gun debate I had here where I understood the American viewpoint. I mean, Jay Leno said to me, Piers, it's like you're going to Germany and lecturing them every night on television about speeding too fast on the Autobahn, right? They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it from you, and they definitely don't want to hear it from your accent.
It's safe to drive 150 an hour.
Right.
Get the hell out.
And he said, look, the smart crowd know you're right. He said, because too many people get killed. He said, but most Germans wouldn't want to hear it from you, and they definitely don't want to hear it from your accent. I get it, okay? This was not a debate that could be led by a British accent. However, I would simply put this caveat out there. And I wish I'd made the debate actually about gun safety, not gun control. I think the word control to the average American is total anathema. It's like a warning sign goes off, and I get that. But I do think in a country with over 400 million guns in circulation, with the amount of gun deaths you have a year and general gun violence, you have an almost unique cultural issue with guns in America, which never gets tackled at all. 1 million new guns get sold every month in America. So the number of guns in circulation rises exponentially all the time. And it's logical to assume that the number of gun deaths will rise exponentially too, in line with the amount of guns in circulation. My targets were never law-abiding, peaceful people who want to use guns for shooting. My brother was a British Army colonel, one of the best shots in the army. I don't think you get shooting for sport or in the military or any controlled environment. The problem is when you have it in such open usage in civilian usage, to me, that I get the self-defense thing, particularly if everybody else has a gun. But at some point, I do think the amount of mass shootings you have in America, at some point there has to be a mature, non-confrontational debate about what actually as a society can be done to make things safer. Let's use the word safety, not control, and let it not be a Brit like me that leads this debate. Let it be Americans having a debate amongst themselves in a way that can remain calm and rational and simply focused on reducing the number of people who get killed by guns.
Have you had Alex Jones on since that?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
So you guys have done stuff together.
Yeah, okay. My issue with him was actually, a lot of it was performative. But my issue with him was the defamation case brought against him by the Sandy Hook families. It emerged in the case that there were graphs that showing that every time he went on the airwaves to lie about the Sandy Hook thing being staged and the families being behind it, two things would happen. One, there'd be a massive spike in his earnings. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars were coming into him every time he did this on the airwaves. They showed how that worked. And secondly, you would have people then believing this who would go to gravesides and they would urinate on the graves of the child victims. And I'm sorry, to me, that's just unconscionable that someone would do that. And this idea that he didn't know that he was spewing lies is bullshit. Of course he knew. So he was deliberately perpetrating a lie about Sandy Hook being staged to make money, and in doing so, endangering the lives of all those people. I interviewed those families. I just think it's unconscionable. I had an argument with Elon Musk about it because he was going to come on my show, and he pulled it at the last minute because he found a clip that someone sent him of me criticizing him for allowing Alex Jones back on the platform. You may remember when he bought Twitter, he said he was going to keep Jones off the platform because he didn't like the way he danced on the graves of children. I agree with him. And I was disappointed when he let him come back on because I think that his whole business model was telling deliberate lies about grieving families.
So you're disappointed he let him back on?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. By the way, you've had Ben on, you've had Candace on, have you had Tucker on? You've done stuff with Tucker as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about what's going on right now, especially this week? Ben Shapiro comes out, makes the video about the fact that Tucker had Nick Fuentes on and makes a 41-minute video calling him out and how dare you have somebody that's celebrating Stalin and Hitler and all this other stuff. Where's your position with everything that's going on within the Republican influencer party?
Really interesting. I like a lot of them. I get on very well with Tucker, with Candace, with Ben, always have done. I've never met or interviewed Fuentes. My only issue was Tucker gave me, we met in Riyadh in the desert by chance. We were both speaking at the same event earlier this year. And we did a 90-minute interview on each other's shows. Me interviewing him, then him going after me. When he went after me, if you watch it back, it was very entertaining, very enjoyable. It was a good old, tussle. But a bit like when he went after Ted Cruz and stuff, he held nothing back going after me and Ted Cruz. But with Fuentes, I just felt he was oddly not doing that. And so the question then becomes for me, well, why wouldn't you go after someone like Fuentes? The stuff he said on the record is so appalling in many cases. There's so much stuff that as an interviewer, you have to go after him about. So my criticism was not that he platformed him. Tucker is right. He can platform anybody he likes. It's one of the biggest platforms in the world. My only criticism was, why didn't you give him as hard a time as he gave me?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair I'm doing that. But so you would house Nick Fuentes?
Well, I think in light of all the controversy about him, it'd be quite interesting to get him on my show and actually do an uncensored number on him where I go after him about a lot of the stuff he said on the record. I think now it's...
You would lose your Jewish donors if you do that. So I just want to prepare you for it.
I don't care about things like that.
You're going to lose that kind of stuff.
I never care about any financial impact to anything I do. I think you've got to be intellectually honest in this game. I think you are when I watch you.
And I appreciate that. You know what I would say? When I think about our jobs, what we do, versus think about the nonprofit job. Yeah. The nonprofit job, guys are giving you a few $1 million. They're not going to get anything in return because they support the cause. So imagine if all of a sudden you're like, well, like Heritage, we are, no matter what they tell us, we're going to protect and be for Tucker forever. And then the next day, listen, we were a little bit inappropriate with our comments and we have changed our position because the donors threatened to walk out. So that charity, the nonprofit sector is a slippery slope because you worry about losing that $4 million fund, the $2 million fund, the $3 million guy that's going to take the money away.
I had this kind of debate about the platforming with people like Andrew Tate and stuff, and Candace Owens when I platformed. And I kind of evolved my view a little bit to the degree that I think that these people have huge followings. You can either pretend they don't or you can accept they do.
Yeah.
And they either have an unchallenged platform of their own to just say whatever they want to say. Take with Candace, for example, I've had a couple of big bust-ups with her about this ridiculous assertion that Brigitte Macron is a man, right? I think it's 100% bullshit. I think she knows it is, but she's now being sued by Brigitte Macron, who will probably prove very easily she's a woman in court, and Candace will lose, but I'm sure spin it into some kind of Pyrrhic victory, and that's her business. But if I have her on, I challenge her about it. We have a proper old ding-dong about it. And actually, I do think that probably society and democracy is better served by having people who have big followings, give them a platform, but challenge them. That should be the challenge for everybody. I do that with anyone, but I just think having people who've got very contentious views on where you don't challenge them, that's an abrogation of your duty as a platformer. Because otherwise, what are you really doing? You're just giving them more oxygen for views. And if you don't agree with them, I thought it was very interesting when Tucker went after Ted Cruz and said, well, what's the population of Iran? He didn't know. It was a viral moment, and we all thought that was a brilliant moment. But you do think, well, why was there no viral moment like that out of your 2-hour interview with Fuentes? I can guarantee there would be if I was with Fuentes. He'd probably give me some hammer too. Fine, fair enough. I can take it. But I do think he needs to be challenged. Fuentes has a massive following, increasingly influential amongst young men in particular, as does Andrew Tate. I've interviewed Tate a few times, and I think I hold his feet to the fire, and he gives it back. And actually, young people who watch it, who maybe have a view of him that is unchallengeable from his own arena, see him being challenged, can maybe change their views.
Who did you interview in UK when you walked on the streets, you went to restaurants, people said, I cannot believe you put him on platform? Who was the number one person that you got criticism in the streets?
Probably Andrew Tate.
Above everybody.
I think so, yeah. He's the most divisive figure that I interview on a more regular basis, yeah. And it's a tricky one. I'd sort of buy into Tucker's thing that you should, if you had got a platform, you should be able to interview who the hell you like. I mean, when he did Putin, for example, he got a lot of stick for doing it, but would any journalist turn down the chance of interviewing Vladimir Putin? And if you're honest, would you go to Moscow and then start haranguing him to his face? Probably not. So, I would probably say I'll interview Mr. I can't even go there because I'm on his sanctions list. But if I said, look, next time you're in Washington or London, I'll do an interview with you. I'd probably feel more comfortable because then you can ask him tougher questions.
This is who, Tate?
No, Putin.
Oh, Putin.
Yeah.
So have you reached out to want to sit down?
Yeah, we've had no from him.
Yeah, he's getting no from him. Yeah.
I did Zelensky in Kyiv. That was a good interview.
Yeah, he would be interesting. When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.